Hello everyone, welcome back. And this time we're gonna focus on our authentication gateway. One very important thing it is that we are gonna be using Nginx as our authentication gateway. So in security, it's very important that you stand on giant shoulder. And in this case, you're gonna be using extensively Nginx to perform our security tasks. So basically, Nginx, I think everyone knows, is a very known proxy server. And so here it's a HTTP web server, reverse proxy, content cache, load balancing, and much more. So it's a very known project, and it's gives a very flexible way to set up things, and you're going to leverage a lot of from the capabilities. So you can see that it's very active. So this year already had a few releases, and here you can see all the project. And this we're gonna use mainly this project. So we will be using JavaScript to actually extend our functionality on the authentication, authorization, and so on. So we have some other egress project here, which can be used in the Kubernetes. But in this course, we're not going to work with Kubernetes because we wanted to kind of constrain the security into a kind of generic way. But you will be able to apply everything that you're going to learn here in the Nginx and Kubernetes together as well. So let's dive into it. So basically, we were logging stuff here, and now we are going to actually have our authentication gateway forwarding the request into our identity provider and then coming back with the authentication code that you have seen before. So let's dive in. So the first thing, I already have done some stuff here to speed up our lesson, our class here. So this is Nginx configuration, and I have actually added here a new folder called Nginx, and I have added here Nginx, and you have Nginx auth and configuration. So let's start from the Nginx configuration, and you're gonna talk later about the Nginx. So this is an Nginx configuration file, and here basically you have a few directives that you can set and to customize our Nginx. So the first thing, we are loading a module, which is an Nginx HTTP JS module. This is to enable us to use JavaScript to extend the Nginx functionality. You're gonna dive deep on this later. But for now, just to let you know that you will be using this module. Then we have here where you set how many simultaneous connection we are going to be accepting. So this usually is the default value. And here you say how many workers we will be using. So basically this is usually you'll be setting here auto, or you will, if you know how many cores your machine has, you can set it here as well. A number if you prefer. Here just saying that I will be using the debug log level, and then we start the HTTP directive where you're gonna define HTTP related things. So the first thing that you do here, it is that you kind of define a custom log format where you're gonna have some informations in the logs that we will be using later. That's basically remote address and remote user, and some request information, status, and so on and so forth. So you're gonna see that on our logs later. Another thing here, basically, this is we are defining the format, and here we are actually using it. And then we include some MIME types that we want to return as part of our request. And here I had to increase the buffer size for sub requests. We will see sub requests later, but I'm already here setting up that directive since we are going to use it. So here we define where our JavaScript code will be placed, and here we are actually loading our first JavaScript code. So I'm going to actually remove this from now. We're going to not need yet, so we can just set here where those will be. Now, so on the server part, so in the HTTP, you can define multiple server. And server, it's basically process that will be running in a given port. So here we are actually listening in port 80, and you can see that it's how it's defined the IPv4 and IPv6. And then here you just define the name for our host. which I'm gonna call gateway. And then here we start to define some endpoints that will kind of be handling. So the first one is we want to have an endpoint that will be a logging endpoint, right? And when the request comes to this endpoint, we want to actually redirect, right, with a code 302 and redirect it to the Keycloak. And that's its parameter that you need to pass in order to let Keycloak handling the correct user login page. So we need to tell where to redirect after the user is logged in, and you need to pass with client ID. We want to kind of load, right? So from the client ID, the Keycloak will define which tenant, or let's say client, and which users that should be looked at. So this is basically to define which client that we have actually set up here. So this would come from actually this here, right? So remember that this is a Keycloak configuration. So you just path it, and so retrieving this configuration. And then you have some scope that expect. So OpenID, it is our protocol that we are using, OpenID, and you want to get a response type code so you can later retrieve the token. And here it's just a web app application type. It's that it's basically saying that you're going to handle the UI for user login. And here we basically where we kind of redirect things to Keycloak, which is running on the port 9000. Okay, and here we're just passing all these parameters that you define in here. Another endpoint that you want to set up, it is actually endpoint where you're going to be redirecting our user after logging. So basically here you are saying that should redirect to port 8002, and this you need to kind of set it here. In this case, this endpoint will not do anything, so it will basically return 200, and with a small message say that Keycloak redirect page, please extract the code from the URL and use it to get the token. So basically, we will stop here on this lesson. So it's basically fulfilling the requirements that you had before, and before we're just seeing that, let's say, not found page, and you're actually having to set the whole URL on the browser. So you should not need any of those that you were doing before. Now it's a more structured way of control the authentication flow. So we have our Nginx authentication ready. So now we need to actually go and configure this new service on our Docker Compose. So basically here I have authentication, and we will just have auth as a host name. And here we're loading an Nginx from the public repository. And we're saying that you're going to run this on the port 8002 and the mapping to the port 80. That's why here we have the port 80, and we are redirecting to 8002. It's because we actually from outside, that's the port that it would be using to access an Nginx. What else? So we actually have to load that configuration that I just went through, right? And we're gonna save it, mounting it on this path. And also we loaded our Nginx JavaScript code as well. So even though we're not going to use yet, but I already added here to facilitate it. And I'm just saying that this depends on the Keycloak. Let's now run everything and see how it looks like now. So I'm running, so we have authentication here and Keycloak as well. So now I should be able to easily access the login. So now we'll see here that we are accessing port 8002 and endpoint login, and then was automatically redirected to our Keycloak, right? And with tenant A, the same we had before, but now we didn't need to set that long URL. It was just a simple URL login endpoint. And this After login successful, it will redirect to our port 8000 and out redirect, and with the message that you have defined. So up to here, we have done well, half of the authentication flow, right? So we now went back with our code. The code is here. And now we'll need just to get this code and actually retrieve the final OIDC token, which will be an OIDC, ID token and access token. So you're gonna implement that in the next lesson. So this is basically done. So up to here, next lesson, we are gonna proceed with the rest of the flow. So see you in the next lecture.